Hey, pilot, welcome back to Ready for Pushback. I'm Nick Fialka. Thanks for joining me today. I'm talking to my friend Matt Hevey, who is a grown man. Matt is a second career pilot. He has a great career as a emergency room physician and is now joining the ranks in the aviation world. And we talk all about his experience and pitfalls of getting a medical and like just lots of great content for the pilot today who's thinking about joining into the aviation world and all the obstacles you have to overcome. I think this is just a great conversation. Matt is a super generous guy with his time. We talked a lot about a lot of different important things. I think you'll find a lot of value in it. So sit back, relax. Let's get ready for Pushback.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
All right, Matt Hevey, how are you, buddy?
Very good. How are you?
Dude, I'm good. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, this is so cool. You reached out to me on some platform and sent me a message saying that you just kind of your story about getting into aviation. And I don't want to give it away. So tell the pilot at home a little bit about yourself and what your story is right now.
Well, I've always wanted to be a pilot as long as I can remember. I wanted to fly for the airlines. And as I was growing up, I was born with a crossed eye. And so because of that, I can't see well out of my left eye and lack binocular vision. And I had pretty much everybody I come in contact with tell me that there's no way I can end up being a pilot. And it was before the days of the internet. And so after being told 5 or 6 times by all my mentors that was probably not going to happen, I ended up going into emergency medicine, mostly because as a hobby, kind of, when I was growing up, I was a firefighter EMT in the local fire department. And that kind of sparked my interest in medicine. And so I ended up going down that route. Went to medical school in Philadelphia and ended up coming down to Florida for residency and have been here ever since. In my mid or early 40s, actually, I found out that one of the local flight schools is here, and I went for a discovery flight just to get up in the air. And my instructor at that time, who was a 20,000 hour pilot and had, I think, 15,000 hours of dual time, he was telling me that he had instructed a guy from Japan who had one eye and ended up going on and working for the airline. And I was like, how can that be? And so after doing some research, I found out, yeah, you actually can. You don't have to have perfect eyesight. You do have to have perfect eyesight to be in the military as a pilot, but you certainly don't for the commercial airlines. You just have to have good enough eyesight that you can pass their exams. And aside from just reading the eye chart, went through a SOTA process, the statement or what was a SOTA?
Isn't it something like statement of demonstrated ability?
Demonstrated ability. Yeah. It's a statement of demonstrated ability, but it's kind of weird that it's a statement. I had to go fly with an FAA examiner. And they had to point out things and say, how far away is that airport? And I had to do some takeoffs and landings, but it was nothing that was difficult at all, and managed to pass that without any problems. And actually I did have some difficulty with my medical because I was in my mid 40s. I'd started with migraines and some, I didn't realize migraines was a big issue for pilots, but I found out after the fact it's huge. And I had to go through the process for that and develop sleep apnea as well too. So I navigated that process, which took probably about 6 months, I think, to go through that. Finally got that approval. And since then, I've gone on and gotten my instrument rating and my private multi-engine. Didn't get my commercial multi-engine yet. In my middle age, with the blessing that I had of being a physician, I was actually able to own a Cirrus for a period of time. I had an SR-22, which is a fantastic plane. I loved flying that plane. And then I decided with my partner that I had in the plane, we wanted to move up to something bigger. So we ended up buying a Piper Navajo and flew a Navajo CR for a year or so, a year or two. And that was fantastic. I actually felt like a pilot. That was the first time I actually really felt like a pilot when I was flying a plane.
Is it because you were broke?
Yes. That old adage of if you have to ask how much it costs to own a twin engine, you can't afford it is incredibly true.
Yeah.
I think the first year we spent about $80,000 on maintenance.
Oh my God.
And that did not include the annual, and oh my God, it was crazy expensive. And then insurance just kept going up and up as well too. So
yeah. Now, is there an end goal in mind?
At this point, I've been in emergency medicine 26 years, and I am ready to move on to something else. And since I am actually able to be a pilot and for professionally, and I've gotten the blessing of my wife, which is outstanding. She's that's perfect. She's an amazing lady. Then I'm hoping to be able to go on and fly professionally. And what that looks like yet, I'm not entirely sure. I would love, my first airline that I ever flew on was Delta. I remember flying on the L1011 the first time, and that was fantastic. And I think that was my first flight ever, was the L1011. And I'd love to be able to fly for one of the major airlines, but at my age, I'm going to be 56 in just a matter of a couple of weeks. That's not as likely to happen. It might, you never know. Depends on what happens with the hiring in the future. But one of the things I've considered is potentially, if I can market it correctly, being a pilot and physician for one of the corporate flight departments or high net worth individual or something along those lines. My AME actually is a very experienced AMA. He's an ex-Navy pilot, and he said he's had a number of times where he's been approached by corporate flight departments to see if he would work for them because he's a physician. So I'm hoping that will be something I could potentially move towards.
What do hours look like right now?
I'm at about 400 hours right now.
Yeah.
I think I have about 80 multi-engine, and I'm about halfway through my commercial single.
Yeah, that's dude, you're crushing it. This is so cool. I have a couple questions. When you went through the process of getting your class 1, and you had to deal with the migraines, and you had to deal with the sleep apnea, and you had to deal with all the other steps, and the misery of dealing with the FAA. Do you feel like you had a little bit of an advantage being a physician, kind of reading through the requirements from the FAA and kind of what you needed to check everything off? Or do you feel like it was easy, or do you have any tips?
Oh, it's definitely not easy. I'm actually currently flying under basic med.
Okay.
Because I got my class 3 initially. In fact, my initial AME that I had seen had told me I was not likely to be able to get a class 1 just because of my migraines and my eyesight. And so I'm actually now in the process of waiting for the FAA to decide on my class 1. And it has been very helpful to be a physician. I think it's, for my class 3 especially, it was very helpful because I literally was able to write to the flight surgeon who was reviewing my case and discuss the migraines and what evaluation I'd had done and how they affected me. And that shortly thereafter, I actually got the approval. So I think that certainly may have helped. it does help with analyzing things as well too. I think biggest um, my biggest recommendation is you have to follow the requirements that they have to the letter, um, including how the notes are written up to the flight surgeons and to the FAA. They want it in a very specific format that most physicians are not used to. So you have to make sure that your private physician, whoever you are seeing, writes it exactly like they expect. Because if it's anything other than that, it is going to delay the process.
Boy, nothing truer has ever been said. That is absolute. I completely agree with that. When I've had a couple speed bumps in my medical career, and I've had my medical deferred a couple times, and as I've gone through the process, I brought the forms with me that the the descriptors that the FAA has for each ailment, and I would highlight the items. I'm like, this needs to be said exactly like this, and this needs to be said exactly like that. And I slide it across the desk to the doctor. I feel like I should just like pin $100 bill on there, but I have not done that. But you really I'm like, listen, man, I try, because you have to really build a relationship with this doctor in order to not just be some other client. And you like that relationship is the reason my doctors were like amicable to like do the extra thing to fill this out. And that's, I mean, it's a tricky thing.
It is. And it does require them to do a lot extra. It's not just like any other patient that walks in the door. So definitely that relationship does help. Me being a physician helps just because my physicians are actually colleagues and friends. So it makes it, I definitely have a big advantage over people who are not physicians.
Yeah.
But I still have to wait for the FAA. I'm still, I sent my packet in to them initially in late July, was deferred, and have been waiting since then, going through the SSRI pathway currently because I take Zoloft, and that is an incredible hassle, having to see a neuropsychologist and their psychiatrist and go through neurocognitive testing. And it's been extremely expensive. I think I've spent over $6,000 in medical evaluations just to try to get through this process.
And each one of your doctors are probably like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done.
Yes, although the neuropsychologist and the psychiatrist both specialize in FAA evaluations. And that actually I highly recommend. If you have to go through one of these pathways, find someone who is very experienced with the FAA. You can't just go to some guy off the street. And if you find a really good AME, they can help you find the correct people that will get you through the process. I mean, I traveled to Southern Florida to see the two doctors that I saw just because they're well known and respected in the FAA.
Yeah, that is. So when I was initially going through mine, I went and I was seeking out the right doctors, and it was, this was almost 10 years ago. And I went to Bruce Chin in Bolingbrook, Illinois. Shout out to Dr. Chin. But this guy was so wired with exactly what needed to be done. And he would say, Nick, do this and this and this, like very specific. Mm-hmm. And if I would like question anything or come back, he'd be like, do this and this and this. Don't say anything. Come back to me when you have it. We'll move on from there. And it was like that. But if I couldn't, I saw him, I was in his office, and like this guy was like arguing with him. He's like, all right, we'll go find another AME. I'll see you later. Boom. Hung up the phone. Yeah. But I felt so lucky to have this guy because he saw the Matrix, and he was so analytical and precise, like a sniper. And that's what I needed, because the FAA doesn't mess around with this stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I've heard of Dr. Chin actually. He's on a lot of message boards and very well respected. And I think that was a very, very good choice.
Yeah, I was
Um,
flying from Florida to Illinois to go to see him. I spent a ton of money,
yeah,
worth every single penny I spent. I'd have paid 10 times as much. It was worth it.
yeah.
I should get him on this
And
show.
you should actually. He would be a fantastic guest.
Yeah.
The I think that's another point though too, is to be very specific with the FAA and don't give them more than they ask for. Give them only what they ask for. Don't give them any more than that. Do not lie.
Oh God.
I see a lot of people mention on boards where they are, not straightforward, but they will find out. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but they will find out. And you'll have your medical yanked and you might have your license yanked, and it would be a potentially career ending mistake.
He's talking to you, military boys and girls, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the pre-show about being an AME and not wanting to go down that path. Why is an AME idea not like why are you not interested in that?
Well, it's not that I'm not interested. It's very specialized. I think to be a really good AME, you do have to have training in aerospace medicine. And I'm an emergency physician. I don't toot my own horn, but I'm a fantastic doctor. I do a great job. I don't accept anything other than excellence in everything that I do. And I don't know if I could deliver the service that the pilots would need just because I'm not an aerospace medicine physician. Does it require you to be an aerospace physician to be an AME? No, but I think that's what makes you stand out as a physician. My current HIMSS AME that I see, as I mentioned, was a pilot for the Navy. He's actually an ophthalmologist, but he was an aerospace physician with the Navy as well too for a long time. So he's very familiar with the process, and I don't think that I could deliver the service they need. And I like to fly.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. My current AME, along with most AMEs in the United States are pushing 60. And there's very few people behind them wanting to fill the gap. And so there's going to be, in the next 7 to 10 years, there's going to be a big gap for AMEs available because most of them are going to retire. And I mean, my AME approached me about like, hey, would you ever be interested in going to medical school? And, you could take over my business. I'd sell it to you and we're ready to pack up and get out of here. And I was like, not a chance in hell would I ever be smart enough to go to medical school. But, I think that I've been talking to people about this. I think that is one of the bigger threats in the aviation industry is going to be a lack of AMEs.
I love emergency medicine, but I'm getting a little long in the tooth to do that. It is so stressful.
Oh yeah.
So, and if I could help out the pilots, that might be something that I'd consider.
Yeah.
I'll have to talk to you offline about your AME if he's looking at selling a practice. I'm assuming that's in Georgia.
Yeah, up in the north side of Atlanta here.
Yeah.
I think the AME thing is very interesting. I've been to some that are set up like puppy mills where where it's just, it's $40 or $80 and you line up and people are waiting out the door and there's no air conditioning and you just walk in, do 4 things and you're out in 20 minutes and it's boom, 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 you knock it out. Yeah. And I've been to others where it's just a long drawn out process. But I mean, once you have an EKG machine and some color wheels from like 1962, you can open up your own AME practice.
Yeah. I think you have to have a couple years doing class 3s and 2s before you can move on to class 1s, something like that. But okay.
That's cool. Yeah. I could never do it. All right. So you are moving down the path in this world of professional aviation. Do you have this glide slope of trying to hit ATP mins in a accelerated amount of time? Like, how often are you flying? Like, what does your life look like with flying?
Well, I'm not flying as often as I'd like. It's incredibly expensive. I don't know how people can afford to do it. I really just it's so expensive. Um, but I'm currently flying probably only 4 to 6 hours a month just to get through the commercial single, and I really need to be flying 4 to 6 hours a week at a minimum. I have looked at going to one of the accelerated schools to finish up my commercial single and multi and go through the instructor pathway. And I do have a few visits set up here in the next couple of weeks to go see some local flight schools and see if that's doable. But most of them are 5 to 6 days a week, which would make working difficult. And with a family, I got my parents living with us. I've got lots of responsibilities that I have to juggle, and I can't just quit my job.
Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly. How often are you doing like longer shifts in the ER? Are you doing like 24-hour shifts, or is it shorter?
No, we're doing 8 and 9 hour shifts. I work in a fairly busy emergency department with fairly sick population, just because we have a lot of older people in the area, and so we have a very, very sick population. So 24 hours would be, oh Lord,
Exhausting.
insane.
Yeah.
I'd love to fly out to Iowa or something and do 24-hour shifts and see 6 people a day.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing 30 plus people in an 8-hour shift.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
but it is something that I'd love to be. I get to work less if I want to. I can work as much as I want to. And so I can potentially work maybe 4 to 6 shifts a month in the emergency department, and then fly mostly full time. I don't think anybody would mind if I told them I had to pick up weekends and cover weekends. I don't think my partners would be too upset about that.
Yeah, that's true. But also, this is a balance. This is a tricky quality of life balance, because you're right. Being able to be present to your spouse and being present to your parents, and pursuing this aviation thing. Like, the good part about looking at the Part 91 world and the charter or the high net worth individual, like, those are there for way longer than just an airline job, and there's way more flexibility in that, especially if you're flying as a doctor as well. Like, great opportunity, a very unique opportunity, I think, that is very few people can bring that side of the house, and you can go well past 65. So I would say the world's your oyster on that.
Absolutely. Not much competition.
That's
but
true.
There's not much opportunity, so you got to make that opportunity. That's going to be a challenge.
Well, where you are in Florida that's where you would probably find that person, West Coast or Florida, right?
Yep, absolutely.
That just seems, or maybe New York, but you don't want to de-ice all the time. It's the worst.
No. Used to live in Pennsylvania. Used to live in Maine, Massachusetts. Northeast I'll be happy to go visit.
Yeah. Well, in the wintertime, I only fly south of Interstate 10. Like, that's how I bid my trips, so I can stay and not have to de-ice.
It's a little chilly in Orlando today.
I know. I've got to go there tomorrow. Man, so I think, your glide slope is so interesting, because the slow and steady pace is going to be able to afford you a greater network in the aviation world where you live, because I think that you're going to be able to continue to meet, especially being being an aircraft owner and being a professional in something other than just flying, that it brings you a lot of clout when you're over there on the flight line and around the hangars and meeting people and talking to people. That's going to be, I think that's going to be the thing that really opens a big door for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple of friends that I'm hoping to be able to spend a little more time with as well. That fly King Airs and Citations and get a little bit of turbine experience, hopefully.
Get it going, man. That's the best way to do it, is like any rock you can turn over that somebody's got a King Air, like, let's go. It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Man.
The Navajo is pretty cool though.
I've never flown one. I'd love to. I tell you, I always talk to people like I can fly all the things. I've got all the certifications, but other than like a military aircraft and regional and mainline aircraft, like, I don't know what I'm doing. If you put me in front of that Navajo, I couldn't start it. I couldn't figure it out.
Oh, it's just like the Airbus. If it stops working well, you just smack it a few times and then it just starts again.
Just like the Airbus. That's amazing, man. Well, Matt, thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks for being part of the conversation. It's so cool to see like your experience and your just love of aviation all the way through your life, and all the obstacles that are there, you're overcoming them, you're making it happen, but you're also making it happen for yourself. You're not like sitting on the sidelines, and that's the best part, man. So thanks for being part of our show.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
All right, pilots, that's a wrap on this episode, and I know what you're thinking. You need to make yourself a little bit better. So how do you make yourself a little bit better? You tighten up your resume. So here's what I want you to do. Go over to my website, spitfireelite.com/podcast, and you can download my free resume template. It is tight, organized, and it's the perfect pilot resume. It's just something I like to do for the pilot group, and it is free to you. So go over there, spitfireelite.com/podcast, and download your free resume template. While you're over there, look at all the services that we offer. Lots of great interview prep, lots of great application review. Everything you need to be a professional pilot is right there. spitfireelite.com/podcast. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next episode.